Now read this.
Hello and welcome back to Now Read This. We have a bit of a change in scenery. I'm hoping that the fountain doesn't cause too much audio interference. But it might. So we shall see. I shall try to speak clearly. Alright, the Castle of Llyr, Chapter 16. A Meeting of Strangers. I am Eilonwy, daughter of Angarad, daughter of Regat, continued Eilonwy, putting her hand to the silver crescent at her throat. But who are you? She repeated. I haven't the least idea in the world what you're talking about. Wake up, Terran cried, shaking her. You're dreaming. Why, yes, as a matter of fact I was, Eilonwy answered, with a vague and sleepy smile. But how did you guess? I don't believe dreaming actually shows when you're doing it. She paused, frowning. Or does it? Sometimes I shall have to find out. The only way, I suppose, is to look at myself when I'm asleep. And how I might go about that, I can't imagine. Her voice faltered and trailed away. She seemed suddenly to forget Terran was even there, and sank back to the couch. Difficult, she murmured. Like trying to turn yourself inside out, or would it be outside in? Eilonwy, look at me! Terran tried to raise her, but Eilonwy, with a little cry of annoyance, drew away. You must listen, Terran insisted. That's what I've been doing, she replied. So far, you've made no sense whatsoever. I was much more comfortable asleep. I'd rather dream than be shouted at. But what was I dreaming? A pleasant dream, with a pig in it, and someone who... No, it's gone now, faster than a butterfly. You've spoiled it. Terran had forced the girl to sit upright once more. Now he stared at her with dread. Despite her travel-stained garments and dishevelled hair, she appeared unharmed, but her eyes were strangely depthless. It was not sleep that filled her, and his hands trembled as he realized Eilonwy had been drugged, or, his heart chilled at the thought of it, bewitched. Listen carefully, he pleaded. There is no time. I don't believe people should be allowed to come stamping into other people's dreams without asking first, Eilonwy said, with some vexation. There's something impolite about it, like walking into a spider web when the spider's still using it. Terran ran to the casement. He could see nothing of the companions below, nor any sign of Cor. The moon was down, and the sky would soon lighten. Quickly he turned back to Eilonwy. Make haste, I beg you, he cried. Climb down with me. The rope is strong enough for both of us. A rope, exclaimed Eilonwy. Me? Go sliding down with you? I've only known you these few moments, but it seems to me you make the silliest suggestions. No, thank you. She stifled a yawn. You might try sliding down the rope yourself, she added with a certain sharpness, and let me go back to sleep. I hope I can remember where I left off. That's the worst of having your dream broken into. You can never find it again. Terran, sick with alarm, knelt beside her. What holds you? He whispered. Fight against it. Can you not remember me? Terran, assistant pigkeeper. How interesting, remarked Eilonwy. Sometime you must tell me more about yourself, but not now. Think, Terran urged. Remember Caer Dalbyn, Cole, Hen Wen. Through the casement, the sea wind carried trails of mist, like tangled vines. Terran spoke the names again, and the names of the companions. Eilonwy's glance was so distant that she herself seemed far from the chamber. Caer Dalbyn, she murmured. How curious. I think that might have been part of my dream too. There was an orchard. The trees were in blossom. I was climbing up, as high as I could go. Yes, so it was, Terran pressed eagerly. I too remember the day. You said you'd climb to the very top of the apple tree. I warned you not to, but you did anyways. I wanted to learn the trees, Eilonwy went on. You must learn them anew every year, she said, for they are always different, and in the dream I'd gone to the last branch. It was no dream, Terran urged, but the life you know, your own life, not a shadow that vanishes in the sun. Indeed, you went to the highest branch. It snapped, as I feared it would. How should anyone know someone else's dream? Said Eilonwy, as though speaking to herself.
Yes, it broke, and I was falling. There was someone below who caught me. Could it have been an assistant pigkeeper? I wonder what became of him." "He is here now," Terran said quietly. "He has long sought you in ways even he himself did not know. Now that he has found you, can you not find your path back to him?" Eilonwy rose to her feet. Her eyes flickered, and for the first time a light shone in them. Terran held out his hands to her. She hesitated, then took a step forward. But even as she moved to him, her glance turned shallow, and the light died. "It is a dream, no more than that," she whispered, and turned away. "Akron has done this to you," Terran cried. "She will harm you no longer." He seized the girl's arm and drew her toward the casement. At the sound of Akron's name, Eilonwy stiffened and tore herself from him. She spun to face him. "You dare not touch a princess of the House of Llyr!" Her voice was sharp. Her eyes had lost their warmth, and Terran saw the brief moment of recollection had fled. He knew that Eilonwy, at all costs, must be taken from this dread place. His terror and dismay grew, with the thought that perhaps even now she was beyond hope. He struggled to catch her by the waist and put her over his shoulder. Eilonwy struck him full in the face with such force that he staggered back. Yet it was not the blow that pained him, but her scornful glance. In her lips now was the smile of mockery and malice. He was a stranger to her, and he feared his heart would break. Once more he tried to seize her. Eilonwy, with a cry of rage, twisted away and broke free. "Akron!" she called. "Akron, help me!" She ran to the portal of the chamber and into the corridor. Terran snatched up the rushlight and raced after the fleeing princess. Her sandals clattered down the shadowed hallway, and he glimpsed an edge of her robe vanishing around a corner. She had not ceased to call Akron's name. In another moment, the castle would be roused and the companions discovered. Terran cursed himself for a blunderer. He had no choice now but to overtake the bewitched girl before every hope of escape faded. Already he heard a shout from the wall and the clash of blades. The rushlight scorched his hand, and he cast it aside. In the darkness he sped to the end of the corridor and flung himself down a flight of steps. The great hall of Caer Calor stretched before him, the crimson haze of daybreak filling its ruined casements. Eilonwy fled across the wide stretch of worn and crumbling flagstones and vanished again. A hand gripped his jacket and spun him around. A torch flared in his eyes. "The pig-keeper!" hissed Mag. The chief steward plucked a dagger from the fold of his garments and thrust at Terran, who flung up an arm to ward off the blow. The dagger glanced aside. Mag cursed and swept the torch like a sword. Terran fell back, seeking to draw his own weapon. The shouts of the awakened guards filled the great hall. In another instant he caught sight of Gwydion, the companions at his heels. Mag spun around. Fflewddur had broken away from the press of warriors and was racing at top speed toward the chief steward. The bard's spiky yellow hair streamed behind him, and his face shone with furious triumph. "The spider is mine!" cried Fflewddur, his blade whistling about his head. Mag, at the sight of the frenzied bard, yelled in terror and tried to flee. The bard was upon him in a moment, striking right and left with the flat of his sword, in such a wild onslaught that most of his blades missed their mark. Mag, with the strength of desperation, sprang at the bard's throat and grappled with him. Before Terran could come to Fflewddur's aid, a warrior with an axe beset him, and despite his stout defence, Terran found himself driven back toward a corner of the hall. Amid the confusion of the fray he saw Gwydion and Rune struggling against other warriors. The Prince of Mona laid about him furiously with his broken sword, and it was to one of Rune's sharp blows that Terran's assailant fell. Fflewddur and Mag were still locked in combat. As Terran raced to the side of the bard, the dark, shaggy form of Gurgi overtook him. With a yelp of rage, Gurgi leapt into the air and clung to Mag's shoulders. The chief steward still wore his silver chain of office. Gurgi snatched it and let himself swing free. Mag gasped and tumbled backward, choking and hissing, while Gurgi dangled for an instant, then sprang clear of the falling steward. In a flash the bard was upon the prostrate Mag. Heedless of the buffeting from Mag's flailing legs, Gurgi laid hold of him by the heels and hung on with all his strength, while Fflewddur, sitting on Mag's head, seemed indeed to be carrying out his threat of squashing the treacherous chief steward. Gwydion, with Dernwyn unsheathed and blazing, had cut down 2 warriors who now sprawled motionless on the flagstones. Terrified at the sight of the flaming weapon, the remaining guards fled. With long strides, Gwydion hastened to the companions. "Eilonwy is bewitched," Terran cried. "I have lost her." Gwydion's eyes went to the end of the hall, where scarlet draperies had been flung back from an alcove. Eilonwy stood there, and beside her, Akron.
Hey, you want to buy something? You can check the description for my books and audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.